Hi, you're listening to It Happened to Me, a rare disease and medical challenges podcast. The mission of our podcast is to support you, our listeners, and to create community as you confront the toughest challenges in life. All of us will experience health hardships. The real question is how we adapt. That's the focus of It Happened to Me, which wants to help you overcome limitations and live a full and satisfying life. Drawing on their own health challenges, co-hosts Cathy Gildenhorn and Beth Glassman interview guests who share stories and research to help you succeed in the face of difficult health obstacles. It happened to me. I'm not alone, and neither are you.
My name is Cathy Gildenhorn. I am the creator and co-host of It Happened to Me. Today, we are changing our format once again, and I'm excited to be interviewing my wonderful co-host, Beth Glassman, about living with a childhood disease. Previously, Beth interviewed me about my journey to parenthood, including infertility and adoption. Now we are switching roles so I can learn about her experience growing up with a childhood condition during school years and beyond. Let's start at the beginning, Beth. When were you diagnosed? And what was the disease?
Cathy, thank you so much. And it's great to be a guest, although I must say, I really prefer asking the questions. But today I'm on the other side of the mic. And to answer your question, I was 8, and the illness is called uveitis.
Can you tell us about uveitis and what symptoms you might have had?
So uveitis is an autoimmune disease. And our listeners will know that we have talked about autoimmune diseases in the past. And it's where, for some reason, the body gets confused and it attacks itself. So in this case, the body is attacking the eyes. And it is a disease, if left untreated, the patient goes blind. So you might ask, what were my symptoms? And it's very curious. I basically had none. The only thing that my mother could tell me was every day she would pick me up from school with a sugar cookie in the car, and I would sit in the front seat. We did that back then. We didn't sit in the back. We sat in the front passenger seat. And in the glove compartment was a bottle of chewable baby aspirin. I had a headache every day, and I took a baby aspirin every day.
Wow.
About a year after, my mother happened to mention it to a doctor that I always had headaches, and the doctor said, children don't get headaches. I think you should have her eyes examined. And that's how it happened.
Wow. Yeah, but just from the headaches. That's amazing.
Just from headaches.
Wow. Did you understand the diagnosis when you received it? And how did your healthcare providers and your parents explain it to you? Or did they? How did that work?
You know, we went to the eye doctor. I think I had been once before, and my parents were told my vision was perfect. And so I went to the eye doctor. They dilated my eyes just like they normally do. And they instructed us that I had a disease. And going forward for the next 6 weeks, I would have to keep both eyes dilated all day, every day. What had happened is the cells had accumulated at the front of the eye, which is very, very serious. So to say this was a shock, it was really quite a shock to me. And you can imagine to my parents who weren't expecting anything. They expected a clean, healthy outcome. And we got anything but that.
And could you feel anything about the cells collecting in the front of the eye with your vision? Nothing.
Nothing, which is what is typical with this disease. For my whole life, this has been typical. Every time I would go to the eye doctor as a child or as an adult, I could have a healthy visit or I could have an unhealthy visit. The unhealthy visit could result in steroid injections in the eye where I would have no idea that I was in trouble, even though from that day forward, I was taking a steroidal drop in the morning and a steroidal ointment. And there was no telling what was wrong unless I went to the eye doctor. From that day forward, I've been going to an eye doctor every 3 months for the rest of my life.
Wow. Well,
And the answer to your question about the explanation, there was none. There was none. We were told, very matter-of-factly, I had a disease called uveitis. I had trouble, frankly, spelling it for many years. I didn't know until I was an adult that it was an autoimmune disease. I didn't know that until I was an adult that I would absolutely develop glaucoma. They didn't tell us that. They also didn't tell me or tell my parents that typically this disease is also accompanied by juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So none of these things were told to us. And as you can imagine, and I know from your own experience, when you go to an eye doctor, it's not the most pleasant. You sit and you wait to be called. Then they dilate your eyes and you're waiting. So as a child, you can imagine by the time I was ushered into the office to see the doctor, I was so exhausted. I didn't ask any questions. But there was no
internet.
There was no way to look anything up. We had no way to look anything up. And somehow asking questions of a medical professional was somehow questioning their judgment or wisdom. It was such a different time back then. Aren't things so much better today where we can research and ask questions? And so I had no understanding of the disease. My parents had no understanding of the disease. And frankly, we never discussed it. Health issues weren't a topic to be discussed in our family. Other things were a topic. We might talk about sports or what happened at school, but health just wasn't on the table.
So when did you have any sense of understanding of long-term consequences of uveitis? Not until adulthood?
Not until adulthood. I knew enough that I had to keep up with my drop schedule and ointments, which, quite frankly, I managed on my own. Even in college, I would make sure that every time I came home, I would make my doctor appointment, always refill my medication, and I took it. I knew that was for a reason, but I had no idea what the consequences would be. I knew over time I had to wear glasses, my vision got worse, but I wasn't sure if that was just the natural progression of my eyes. My father wore glasses, so maybe I had his eyesight. No one took the time to sit down and explain it to me.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I was an adult and I had a flare that was so bad that the doctor that I was seeing at the time said, I think you're going to have to go on oral steroids to clear this up. He said that or steroid shots. And I looked at the doctor, and with every amount of courage I could summon, I said to him, how often have you given these shots? And I got a blank look back. And I went home and I thought, I'm never going back to that doctor. I am going to find my own doctor. And I'll never forget, I did research and I called this doctor to make an appointment. And I said, my old doctor said, I need an injection. I'm really not sure why. And the doctor said, I will meet you at the hospital. And my sister, my younger sister, drove me. We met him at Georgetown. And he walked in with a shot in his hand. And he said, all right, hold still. And I said, wait a minute. Aren't you going to tell me what the side effects are going to be? And he said, it's going to be bad if you move. Don't move. And that was my first steroid injection. And I will tell you, a trust between this doctor and myself for many years. But it was, I think, because I found this doctor, I knew who he was. He had been at NIH and was now in private practice. I knew he knew about this disease. I knew he knew how to treat it. And I felt a sense of confidence that I had never felt in my entire childhood going to practice I had been going to.
Wow. Did this uveitis have any real impact on your daily daily life in early childhood, or not until this time when you were researching for your own doctor and things like that later in either teenage years or early adulthood?
I was certainly, as I got older, as I said, my eyesight grew worse. I started to wear glasses. I would make sure I sat in the front row at school. No one at school was ever notified that I had an eye issue. I absolutely never told anyone about it.
Wow.
No one, I never confided in anyone that I had an eye issue. I was on the tennis team. I was a swimmer. I was a dancer, and I drove. And so I was able to compensate. I remember I was a pretty good tennis player, and as years went by, I was having trouble seeing the opposing racket. Placement of the racket for you tennis players out there, you want to know whether it's going to come to your forehand or backhand because you could need to start moving. And I was having trouble seeing the racket head. So I was aware I didn't like driving on the Beltway, and I knew that I was having trouble seeing the signs, but I really didn't talk about it with anyone. I was aware of it, but didn't mention it to anyone.
At any point, did you start discussing it with your sister or your parents or teachers or friends? Was there a time when you felt liberated and you could discuss it with people?
Honestly, no. It wasn't until I think the first time in college, I had a flare, and my vision at that point was very bad. And I was put on oral steroids, and I was put on massive doses to try to clear my eyes. They just didn't agree with me. And to this day, if I've had to go on oral steroids for a surgery, they don't agree with me. I get sort of weepy, a little down in the dumps, I would say.
Oh,
And I remember crying. And at that point, that was the first time when I was in college, I had never been to a therapist. And I just asked my mother to make me an appointment. And I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. Now, of course, when I went to the therapist, he's the one who said, oral steroids can do this to you, make you cry, make you weepy, make you down the dumps. You're going to get better because your eyes are going to get better. They're going to take you off these oral steroids little by little, and you'll be fine. And I felt much better. But it was the first time, I guess I was in college, where I really spoke to someone
about it.
About it. And it wasn't till then.
And have you, since your college years, have you ever gone back to a school counselor, a therapist, a social worker, anything like that?
I have. I had in my life a terrible eye injury. I was hit accidentally in my good eye. I had 5-6 surgeries within 2.5 months and was once again put on massive doses of steroids. And I was now left with an eye that did not have good vision in it. And I knew my life was going to change. And I was pretty down and in tremendous pain from the hit. And so I needed to research a therapist. I hadn't been to one since college, and that I think I went twice. So that was my first real experience with therapy about what this would mean for me, how my life was going to change as a result of this accident. First of all, how was I going to get through this pain and these surgeries? It was one after another, and I kept going blind. So there was tremendous fear because the only eye that was now functioning was not doing a great job, and it kept collapsing. So I kept going blind. I went totally blind 3 times. And so I was in tremendous fear, tremendous pain. And I went to a therapist for a couple of years, twice a week. And I think for the first time, really thought about what life would be like in my new reality and to face a new reality.
Now, once you were in therapy and once you found that talking helped, were you able to talk to any friends about it yet, or was that later?
Still, at this point, close friends, of course, had heard about the accident. And I only talked about it when I absolutely had to. Somehow I saw that as weak. Isn't that so silly? But I did, that I wanted to be strong and I wanted to be graceful and elegant, and I wanted to be who I was.
And you weren't raised talking about it. And it
wasn't used to talking about it.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't used to talking about it.
About uveitis, let alone the accident.
Yes. And so all of that was so painful. It wasn't until I think my vision really declined, where friends, I couldn't hide it anymore. There was no hiding. They were reaching out to help me. And I was so surprised. If I would meet a friend for lunch, I would get a text and she would say, "I'm outside waiting for you, Beth." Or someone would just start to read a menu to me. Or someone would say, "Beth, the chicken is in the center." All of a sudden, people were helping me. And somehow they knew. Someone would grab an arm. Someone would say, "Do you need help going to the restroom?" And I will tell you, I found that I had a community of friends. It really makes me tear up because I'm so very blessed.
I'm so thrilled you have the support.
They were so generous and kind and were there for me, but there for me in a way that I maintained my dignity.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. But I'm just amazed. Your teachers never knew what was going on, and you never spoke about it back then. What about in college? Once you were briefly dealing with it, were your teachers ever aware that there were any issues?
Never.
How old were you when it started impinging on your ability to drive or play sports? Was it in early childhood? Or it doesn't sound like it if you were playing tennis, swimming.
I was playing I was doing all these sports and I was able to do them. I can remember when I played on JV in high school, and I knew that I couldn't play in college. I knew that my vision was I would not be able to continue tennis. It was happening then, but maybe I wouldn't have played anyway. Then I wasn't destined to be a great tennis player. I was a decent tennis player, but not a great tennis player. So it wasn't a big loss. And
what about swimming and driving?
So driving, as I said, the Beltway was terrifying to me. And what I started to do, if I had to go to some place that was unfamiliar or a place of first impression, I would do a practice drive. I would get directions, and that had already started as a regular course. I was already doing that.
My hat goes off to you. I have such respect for how you've managed and handled this. It's just inspiring.
I think, though, today we're so much more open about illness and about challenges. And I would have been better served to have been more open. Life would have been easier for me if I had been more open. And I think the atmosphere is such that you have permission to do that. You're not seen as a complainer, that sort of thing. That what I was so worried about, I don't want to be a complainer. I want to be self-sufficient. I want to be independent. I could still be those things, but still share with my friends.
Site is the best site. Sometimes we don't know what's right for us until we are past the point where it can really help us.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly right.
I think it's so important that you have grown along the way, where while you were more private and silent about it, initially, you are now, while you're not completely open, I get it. You are so open, though, with our audience, with me, with your dear supportive friends, family. It's not like you advertise it, but you don't hide it either. Yeah,
Yep.
it's beautiful. You have managed so well over the years. Not that it's perfect, not that there aren't things you'd change, but you're strong and you've persevered and you're determined. You've made modifications to your life and your home, and you make things work. And it sounds like you did that from day one. And even as an 8-year-old getting this unheard of diagnosis, you managed to just plow through and keep going and do what you wanted to do. And over time, knowledge and learning opened the doors to finding out more about uveitis and glaucoma. But
Yes.
congratulations. Now,
Well, thank you for those compliments.
Oh.
Thank you for those compliments.
Well, I think you're an inspiration to our audience, and I'm so thrilled that you've opened up about this. I think it's so important that people hear the different ways that everybody has to think about what works for not just them, but their support system, their families, everything, their teachers, their schools. And it's just really inspirational. But given that uveitis is an autoimmune disease, were you worried you might pass it on to your children?
I was absolutely worried about it. And so you can imagine when I have 2 children and I would take them to the eye doctor, as luck would have it, my daughter, turns out she has inherited both my eye disease and she has the juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Now, she had symptoms of the arthritis before she developed the uveitis. And as a young mother, I still didn't know that arthritis accompanied uveitis. I still didn't know about juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, didn't know there was such a thing, if you can imagine that. And so my daughter,
How did you respond to her childhood illness?
Well, this was really a big deal because I was determined that we were going to beat this together. And there was nothing that was going to stop us. And so I found the best doctors to take care of her, to take care of both the arthritis and the uveitis. She really did suffer with the arthritis. She had periods in one knee and both ankles where her knee she would have an arthritic attack where it would get red, it's swollen, and painful, and filled with fluid. And there were times where where she would beg me to take her to the rheumatologist to drain her knee and get a cortisone injection. And I will tell you, it was so painful as an adult to watch my child go through this, let alone
when she was diagnosed.
She was 3. I noticed that she was walking funny. And then the following year, they found the uveitis. And so one of the things that I very much so for parents who have a child with a disease and they're managing it, I'm in there and I've been on both sides of this issue.
Yeah, you're incredible.
A team.
Yes.
You need a team. You need a team that you can trust because you're going to be spending a lot of time with these doctors. You need to know that you can trust them and that they have your child's best interest at heart. The other thing that I would do is to try to make our time together not just a medical adventure. So there were times that I had to take my daughter out of school and we would have to go to an eye doctor or to a rheumatologist. And I guess I can say it now, but I didn't take her right back to school after that appointment. We would do something fun together. So that meant a stop for hot chocolate or a bagel stop or a cupcake stop. We went somewhere and did something together so that she didn't feel that I was just running and dumping her off. We would do something else together. And I have a vivid memory of the 2 of us these injections in her knee for the cortisone shots were very painful. And I said to the pediatric rheumatologist, I want you to numb the area before the shot. And he said, we just don't do that. And I said,
Yes,
give me something and I will do it at home. I don't want her to go through that pain. So they gave me a patch to apply on her knee. And I was so, I'm not a medical person. How did I know where to put it? It would draw a little place on her knee. And I can remember a time looking at a catalog as I'm numbing up her knee, and we were looking at Halloween costumes and what was she going to be? I was always trying to do something
to distract her,
to be something cheerful.
Something to make her feel like a kid.
Yes. But there were times that, she would be in pain and we would talk about it. And I would say to her, and I would say to parents who have a child, what I would say to my daughter is, you know what your thing is. You know what your illness is, and you know it before all your friends. I said, I promise you, they will have theirs at some point in your life. The difference is you will learn how to live with it. You will learn how to take care of yourself with this illness, and you will get through it. And I said, and then you'll be the example for them, and they'll turn to you to find out how they're to do it. I don't know if it helped, but I used to say it to her at any event. But that's what I would say to parents, that to try to make your time together, not just about the office visit and the medical stuff, but to have a little fun, let your child be a kid, let your child enjoy time with you, because it still is precious time together. And to give them reinforcement that this is normal, that they're not abnormal, they're normal.
Boy, it sounds, pat yourself on the back. It sounds like you learned also through your childhood disease how to be the parent that you wanted to be for your daughter. And that's beautiful. And it sounds like you've grown tremendously through this whole process. As I said before, you just pat yourself on the back. That's just tremendous, Beth.
Well, I have to say that parents are going to feel as I felt. I did this to her. It's my fault. And, all through life, I have felt that. I feel a sense of guilt. And my daughter has recently said to me, I have this wrong with me or that wrong with me. That came from Dad, not you, Mom. And she's the one who says to me, I used to get acne. You're the one with the perfect skin. Look at Dad's skin. I got his skin. It's his fault, right, Mom? Oh, so she, the younger one, was telling me, the old one, what was really important in life. And it isn't about that. It's certainly, a parental love for their child is really this bond that you have with your children. That's what's important. And the genes, they're genes, and we all pass them on. Now, it's easy for me to say, I still feel guilty. I want you to know. But I have somewhat worked it out in my mind that I gave her good genes and bad genes. And my son has good genes and bad genes. And they all have mixed together. And they're into this wonderful, I happen to have two terrific children.
Yes, you do. I vouch for that one.
Super. And it wouldn't be that way without these good and bad genes all mixed in together.
Absolutely. Well, I got to ask you, Beth, what is your vision like today? And how do you describe it both to our audience and to people around you or someone that you need to understand not to bump into you or something like that?
I am today legally blind. Actually, I'm speaking to you today. We are in a rental house out of town, and all the walls are white. And I keep bumping into walls. And because I can't see where the end of the wall is. And I just went out and I bought painter's tape so I won't ruin the walls that have been freshly painted by the owner. It's not their fault that I can't see. And I have this blue painter's tape all
At
over
the
the
end of, yes,
at
that's
the edge of
so
every
important.
wall, at the edge of every wall. And there are just 2 steps here. And on those 2 steps, and so I'm making where I am safe and comfortable for me so I don't bump into the walls.
You are so smart and so just really creative in how you set up modifications and adaptations to your environment so that you can get the most out of life and lead a better life. I mean, you are the reason we're here as a podcast.
Well, it's important. It's important. And at the end of the day, Cathy, I feel very lucky and I feel very blessed. I think that, as I said, I will brag about my children from here till doomsday. I love them.
And your grandchildren.
And my beautiful grandchildren. And I happen to have a really nice husband too. And I'm lucky to have my mother in my life and my sister and my brother. And I have these dear friends. What could be better than that? And so to me, I have these beautiful relationships in my life, and I feel really blessed by that. And I think about it all the time, how lucky I am.
Well, how do you think about having a healthy lifestyle as an adult? Was this impacted by your childhood disease or your experience with your daughter as the parent of a child with a childhood disease?
This is really something that is really important to me, is living a healthy lifestyle. And I expend a lot of energy on it. I think that eating what your doctor said or your mother told you, eating well, sleeping well, getting exercise every day. And I do that religiously. And one of the reasons that I am out of town is I am in a warm climate so that I can walk every day. And I think it's truly important to maintain your health. I have an optic nerve problem, and no one has ever said, well, Beth, if you exercise, you're going to help your optic nerve. But I know that I am. I know that by exercising, I am helping my entire body, and my optic nerve is going to be helped too. And so I think it's crucially important. I think that this stems from my issue with having a childhood disease. I think watching my daughter, and I know that from doing all sorts of research, that leading a healthy lifestyle helps you have a healthy adulthood and a healthy senior living. And that's really what's important.
What it's all
You don't
about.
want to just live. You want to live in a healthy way and live well. So I really do practice that. And I think that it's important to not only do it for yourself, but you set an example as you do it. So I was always exercising. I had an elliptical when my kids were little.
Treadmill? Can you go on a treadmill?
It is really not safe for me to go on a treadmill.
So then being outside, being in a warmer climate.
In a warm climate and walking on a flat path. I don't walk by myself ever. I'm always with someone so that I don't fall, because falling is also a very bad thing. So I'm very cautious about how I lead my life, but I lead it to the fullest and get as much exercise as I can. And it's sort of interesting now that I'm open with my doctors. My doctors are more open with me. And I have been told that having glaucoma, I shouldn't do anything, for instance, a yoga pose that would put my head below my heart, that would cause pressure in the eye, that they told me no more treadmill because I could easily fall. And then they even told me to stop the elliptical because I might fall off the piece of equipment. And so I have determined that really walking is the safest thing for me, but moving is important for all of us. And I constantly am thinking about eating healthy, having salads, vegetables, fruits, all those sorts of things that lead to a very healthy lifestyle and getting a good night's sleep. It sounds very Pollyannish, but I believe it 100%. And I think we would all be well served if we just followed the simple rules that our doctors have told us.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, in closing, Beth, what advice would you give to both parents who have a child with a health issue or children that have a health issue? What advice would you give to people based on your experience on both sides of the coin?
Yes, I think finding a good team of doctors is crucially important. People that you trust and people who you feel care about you. And quite honestly, that's not so easy anymore. It takes some time and some research to find
it. Took me a long time. Yeah.
It really takes a long time to find people that are knowledgeable about what you have and are there for you. I think being positive and being optimistic, we all have something. As we know, everybody has something. And the important thing is leading a full life, which is what we talk about on this podcast all the time. And so if you have a child, tell them they're not different or odd. They're like everyone else. Children want to be like everyone else. We don't want to be different. We want to be like everyone, but all of us have something. So we're all different and we're all the same in that way.
And where do you come out now on being more open about your issue or more hiding your issue? Where now with new times and new information availability with the internet and support groups and everything else, where do you come out on that?
I don't wear a billboard, but I think once I'm comfortable, I will tell people. And I've learned ways to sort of, if I'm at a black tie event and if I can't see the food on my plate, which is all the time, I might say to my dinner partner, what are we having? Or I can't find my menu card. What's on the dinner menu tonight? Or, I will still sort of skirt around the issue. I guess sometimes old habits die hard, but people are really helpful if you let them be. And I have found that people will help you. And there are times where I've been in a public restroom where I've turned to someone else at the sink and said, do you see the soap? And they absolutely will come over. They figure it out. They know what the problem is and they'll show you. And, if you ask for help, people will give it to you. So I guess I'm still on a learning curve, Cathy. I guess, to be honest, I'd like to say I conquered this. I'm always learning. I'm always evolving. I'm not there yet, but I guess part of me holds back a little bit. It's who I am. And I think we can't change that. And so when you feel with your own particular illness that it is time to tell someone, then it's the right time. I've had
That's beautiful advice. Yeah.
On their medical issue, but it's so interesting that exactly what I told my daughter has happened to me. My friends who have watched me go through this eye journey, now as they are discovering they are having illnesses, they are coming to me privately. They are privately telling me about their illness that no one else knows about. And they're asking me, how do I do it? How are they going to do it? How are they going to manage? And we talk about it. And so I have become what I said my daughter would, what I promised my daughter she would be the example. It's really come to pass that I have become the example for other people so that people share with me all sorts of issues. I'm a confidant of lots of secrets that people have about their health. And I hope that I have been helpful to them with my advice and with my way of life that they have watched me.
Beth, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today and for opening up in this episode. And thank you for being my wonderful co-host on It Happened to Me. It's so exciting that we now have celebrated 2 years together on the show. Oh, it's
Can't
amazing.
believe it. And it's
Can't-
all due to you, Cathy. Kathy is the inspiration behind this podcast. And really, hats off to you, Cathy, for making it
Oh.
happen. And it is my utmost pleasure to be your partner.
Beth, you're a terrific partner. You make it so beautiful, fun, and meaningful. I just really enjoy it.
Oh,
Thank you for everything.
thank you. Thank you, Cathy.
Thank you for listening to this episode of It Happened to Me. We encourage you to learn more at ithappenedtomepod.com. Please use the contact form on our website to submit your guest suggestions, comments, questions, ideas, and feedback for the show. You can also email us directly at ithappenedtomepod@gmail.com. We would really appreciate it if you can leave us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app like Apple or Spotify. This helps others in the rare disease and medical challenge community find us. It Happened to Me is created and hosted by Cathy Gildenhorn and Beth Glassman. I'm Keira Deneen from DNA Today, and I serve as our executive producer and marketing lead. Amanda Andrioli is our associate producer. Ashlyn Anokian is our graphic designer. And remember, it happened to me. I'm not alone, and neither are you.